When I published my first book, I tried all types of different marketing services and promotional ideas that I thought were really clever or creative, and some of them worked, but a lot of them did not. Now, going on a decade later, I'm revising my book about book marketing, and in the past I've said things like book marketing is dead or publishing a book is a waste of money, and that's because if you haven't built a solid basis around your product so that you have something that has intrinsic value to your target audience, then more visibility is not going to bring more book sales. It's possible someone might sell you the idea that your book will be really successful and make a lot of money, and then they can coerce you to sign up for an expensive book marketing package under the illusion that you're gonna make 10 times your money back. And at first I thought maybe this book is just too old to revise because 10 years was a long time ago and things are changing so quickly right now. However, whenever I go on Facebook or Reddit, I see people asking the same questions, because when you first publish your first book and you don't know anything about marketing or building an online platform, there are ideas already in your head where you think this might be a good idea, this is what big companies are doing, maybe I should try this, and then you go online and ask questions. And the problem with most writers' forums is that a lot of other people are beginners also, and they may not have the experience in book marketing to give solid advice. But if you hang out in the right circles with other best-selling authors who are actually making a living, then there's definitely stuff that everybody does not do because we know it doesn't work, it's not worth the time and the effort. And there's the stuff that first-time new authors will want to do and even pay a lot of money to get done that won't sell any books. And the point of book marketing is dead is mostly to tell you, you really shouldn't do all of these things. Even some of the stuff that I thought was a good idea 10 years ago, in the new revision, I've gone through and added notes about why you really shouldn't be doing it this way anymore, because there are new opportunities to market your books. The problem is, if you try to do all the other expensive stuff that doesn't work first, you're probably going to get burned out and not have any budget left for the stuff that is working. So in this video, I just wanted to summarize 10 of the book marketing fails or book marketing mistakes that don't work, that you probably shouldn't be doing anymore. I'll go through them pretty quickly and then have some extra tips about what you could do at the end, so stick around. Also, I'm going to be revising some of my other books on book marketing and turning a newer book marketing course into a book I'll probably publish soon. So if you haven't subscribed or if you're not on my email list, you might want to stick around. I'm also putting this on my blog, creativeindie.com, so if you prefer to read, you can just go over there. And I'm trying to boil it down into a checklist or a bullet point, which I will probably do, but there's value in just getting all of the information. So I thought I'd make this YouTube video and go through 1 through 10. Number 1, believing a good product is enough. In other words, believing a good book will sell itself. Not only is this rarely true on its own at face value, most authors don't have a good book. I know that can be really hard to hear, but especially if you're self-publishing, if you haven't been studying the craft of writing for a long time, if you haven't gone through a developmental editor, or even if you have, because I can tell you as a developmental editor, I can clean up your story and make it remarkably better, but I can't rewrite the story for you. So if it's just not a well-constructed, powerful story, I can make it to the point where it is clean and fine. But to really get to that, this is a great book people are going to talk about, you may not smash it out of your park with your first book. And this is a little weird because there's an expectation with writing that creativity is its own reward. If you enjoy the creative process, then the book will be good, and you think it's good because you enjoyed the process, so you assume everybody else will like it. Also, there's this tendency for new authors to believe their very first book is going to be amazing, when that is never true for any other creative pursuit, whether art or writing. Typically, we understand that you can develop a skill for many years and not be amazing at it. It often takes, people say, 1 million words or 10 years or whatever. It takes 10 years to write the first book and then 3 months to write the second book. People are sort of aware of this, but myself included, when you finish that first book and you're just full of enthusiasm, you can overestimate how good the quality of your book is. And that's a really hard thing to figure out until after you've published and put it out there. You can always revise a book, or you can always do better with your next book. But most authors just try to market the book that they have. So that's a whole discussion I could go into in more detail, but I have other videos about all of that. Even if we push all that aside, the idea that a good book will sell itself, or that if your book is good, people will find it, people will buy it eventually by word of mouth, it'll get out there. There are success stories from a couple decades ago where that happened, and some authors could just push their book out to enough people until it took off. That's harder and harder to do now. There's too much competition and noise. You really want to make sure readers enjoy your book. Ultimately, that's all that's going to matter. Book marketing can't solve the problem of readers not enjoying your book. But when we talk about, is your product good enough, is your book good enough, I'm also talking about the cover or the blurbs or the reviews, which we're going to get into a little bit more in number 2. But a lot of authors are just not ready to do their book marketing because their book itself will not convert the right audience. Even if they put it in front of the right people, it's not communicating the benefits, it's not attractive or professional looking enough. Maybe it still has some typos in the blurb or the introduction or wherever that could scare some people off, or their questions and skepticisms and doubts are not being overcome, which is something you need to do with the reviews and the blurb. So leading on from that, number 2 is marketing before the product is ready. And this is always tricky, especially if you're self-publishing. The challenge with self-publishing is that you are in control of everything. So when you hire a cover designer, for example, most first-time authors will tell cover designers the idea they have in their minds for what they want their book cover to be about or to look like. And that's probably not your core strength as an author. You want to hire a cover designer who knows the genre and knows how to sell books to that audience using design. It's fine not to be an expert in that. You can design your own cover. I've spent a long time building templates and resources for you to do that. But you can't just do exactly what you want with your limited skills. You can use a template, or you can get some ideas of what is going to be successful. You have to learn a little bit more if you're going to DIY everything yourself. Number 3 is about shouting on social media instead of building connections. So the kind of main point of book marketing is dead, which is free and you can download it, is that a lot of people are using social media as a platform, and it really isn't a platform until you have followers. So most book promotion, I probably have another video, or I'm making another video where I just added some 3D promotional graphics that you can use to promote on social media on DIYbookcovers.com. But social media is a place to build relationships and connections by interacting and engaging and by sharing value. There's an opportunity to build relationships with people over time, which can be very effective because otherwise you're just doing cold outreach. So when you just post spam, basically, when you post book promotion about yourself or about your book, whether it's a discount or an excerpt or whatever, a review from somebody else, when you're talking about yourself and your book, nobody is going to care about that unless they are already followers who have read more of your work. Unless, maybe it's a free deal or a 99-cent deal, then you're giving them a reason to be interested because there's a promo or a discount. But generally, people don't follow each other for promotional content, and you shouldn't be using social media to promote your books. I know that sounds pretty weird because everybody talks about social media marketing, and that's basically the disconnect, is that you can, over time, build relationships with people by offering value, and then when you give a promotional post, they will actually care enough to look at it. It's also true that Facebook and organic visibility for social media has gone way down. So whether you have a page or a group, whether you do boosted posts or advertisements on Facebook, which can be effective, there's a lot more to talk about there. We'll talk about it at the end of the video probably. You can either share nice, interesting, cool things that get traffic and engagement, or you can share things like "go buy my book," which typically won't get more engagement because people don't want to see it, which means you'll have to pay more to put it in front of those people. And depending on the platform, you want to have native content, which means you don't want to use the exact same stuff on every social media site. You want to understand the audience, the content that is attractive, that people are engaging with on that specific platform, and then create content that kind of aligns so it doesn't feel too much like it stands out or interrupts their scrolling. Number 4 is relying on vanity metrics or empty visibility. I've gotten millions and millions of views for my content. All those views don't translate into book sales. They could be the wrong audience. They might be completely irrelevant, or the call to action just has no relationship with, like, I don't have books for all of the topics that I rank really well for. So I get a lot of traffic and visibility that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It can be nice as social proof. Like I've hit with box set collections, I've hit the Wall Street Journal or the USA Today bestsellers list. I don't put those on my books, but different authors have different rules or considerations about whether or not it's appropriate to use the letters of some bestseller lists in order to sell books. They can, to some extent. The thing about any kind of social proof is a buying consideration after people are already interested in the book. So if they like your cover enough, if they like your blurb enough, they're interested in getting the book. Those are the first things. Then they may have doubts. So reviews can help overcome those doubts, or proof like, number 1 in this category or best-selling, whatever. That kind of proof can help people cross the line to make a purchasing decision, but it's not the reason they want to buy the book, which is why, for example, a book award seal doesn't really belong on the book cover because it's information. It belongs on the blurb. You want a strong emotional cover, not an informational cover. But basically, this is why you want to be skeptical of people who give you big numbers, like we will tweet your book to 1 million people or share your book with 1 million people or whatever. You need to verify whether that audience is the right audience for your genre or your topic or your subject. You can't assume, for example, there are some websites who offer vanity publishing, book marketing services, and they basically build a platform with traffic by getting a lot of authors to share their content because authors want to win their contest or whatever, and then they sell author services. But the only people going to those websites are authors looking for book marketing. They're not readers, and they're especially not readers who enjoy your specific genre or topic. If you have to pay to reach 1 million people, but only 50,000 of them may actually enjoy your genre, then most of those people won't be on that website at all because they're going to see a bunch of ads for all this random stuff they don't want. That's not the right audience. Any platform that tries to market your books to everybody, that's not going to work very well, which is why email campaigns work really well with like BookBub or Fussy Librarian or Book Barbarian, ENT, which is e-readers News Today. All of those promo sites work well because they have a targeted list for every genre. So you can pay $50 or more for BookBub. It's quite a bit more. But you can send information about your book to a very specific audience. This is also what you can do with advertising. You can target certain people who like certain topics or even certain authors or certain books and show your book to those people, which is pretty smart and necessary to train Amazon's algorithm, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. It is fun to be number 1 bestseller in your genre. Typically with Amazon, especially, you have 3, I think now, categories that show up. And if you do a good book launch and move about 100 copies or so, which I think is the bar you should shoot for when you do a book launch, at 100 copies, you'll probably get high enough in the store where you'll be a number 1 bestseller in at least some of your categories. And then you can say, on launch, I was the number 1 bestseller in this category. It's a fun celebration to post on social media. where you're saying, yay, my book is number one, thanks so much for supporting me, whatever. That's a lot more exciting than, go buy my book, please help. So that kind of stuff, getting number one on Amazon, that's fun to do, but don't let someone sell you a package where they will guarantee you a number one bestseller for a lot of money, because it may not take that much sales. This is why I personally don't do it, because I could charge a lot of money for it, but I would spend, like you could spend a ton of money. If I can't control the book cover or the reviews or the blurb, if the book product is not ready, I could spend tons of money and not even break even, because you can't make a book sell if it doesn't convert the right audience. So I would have to have control over fixing all of those things. Any marketing package that tells you they can get you book sales without fixing all of those things is something I would be really skeptical of. But especially if they're saying things like, I will guarantee you a number one bestseller, that probably means they are paying for purchases, which means you will spend a certain amount of money and they will use bots or click farms to buy 100 copies to boost your rank. But those aren't real, authentic readers. They're not going to turn into fans or reviews or anything. You spike your rank up to get number one, which sounds fun, but you kind of cheated to get there and it doesn't really matter. So that's something I think should be on your radar, not necessarily not to do it, but also because you want to be aware of other people making those promises to you. Number 5 is pouring money into ads without book reviews. So I talked a little bit about the cover. I think I'll talk more about it later because it is really important. You need your blurb to work really well as well. But you can't sell a book without reviews because people don't know it's any good and they won't trust you that it is. You also can't really sell a book with only 5-star reviews because nobody will trust them. So don't worry about your first couple 2 or 3-star reviews. Also, it's worth mentioning, when you first publish a book, negative reviews tend to come in faster. I don't know why, but typically the first couple are negative. And then usually it's because, I do know why, it's because people stop reading the book for whatever reason. They DNF, they did not finish, and then they go leave a negative review about why they didn't finish it or why they didn't like it or whatever. So that's why those reviews come in faster. Good reviews take more time because people have to read the whole thing and really consider it before leaving the review. So when you first launch, don't worry if the first ones are negative, although it does really suck because if you're trying to do a good launch in the first couple weeks and you're waiting for those reviews, that's a problem. You should get at least 10, hopefully a dozen. Nothing, you don't get a unicorn when you go past 50. Amazon doesn't start promoting your book when you get past 100. I have thousands of reviews and it doesn't matter. I can't make my books sell more than books with fewer reviews unless they have, less than 10, no reviews. Then if they have a following, it'll sell anyway. But when you're starting out and you don't have a following, the reviews are really important and they're hard to get if you don't have a platform, which is why I focus a lot on building your own platform and email list, which I might talk about later, but these are really just the book marketing mistakes. The problem with ads without reviews is you're basically paying to put your book in front of people and they may click because it sounds interesting, but you'll lose a lot of the conversion if you don't have enough book reviews, which is why you should really focus on getting them up. I'm so tempted to go into book reviews, but I could talk for an hour about how to get more book reviews, and I have a lot of other videos on that. But you want to be aware of just spending money on ads without reviews. It's one important piece, and it's the important piece most authors can't get because it's not something you can easily go out and pay for. It's not a service. If you can't get enough people to enjoy reading your book, you're not going to get reviews. That could be a critical story failure where they just don't like the story. Although even then, I would say you're targeting the wrong audience. Most likely it's the cover isn't attractive enough to convert people, or you're not removing enough of the barriers to entry. You're trying to sell a full price book to people and you're not giving them enough reasons to pay full price. You're not justifying the price point, which means people, you can charge whatever you want as long as people feel it's that valuable. And most authors have trouble proving to readers that their book is valuable enough to pay the amount that they want to charge for it. If you have a lot of reviews, if you have a big platform, then it doesn't matter, you can charge what you want. But in the beginning, when you're still figuring out your covers, your reviews, your blurbs, and you should assume it's not good enough yet, because I've been doing this for 20 years and mine are not good enough yet. I'm always updating my blurbs and my covers because they can always be better, and it is the easiest and most important thing to do instead of wasting money on advertisements or book marketing, to make sure you fix your core product and remove the conversion issues. Like I said, I think I'll make a new video about ads pretty recently because I have my new stuff on DIY book covers, and also a lot of people have been asking me about, running their Amazon ads or managing their Amazon ads, which doesn't really work because it's very hard to get advertising profitable at all. So there's not more extra money to give to someone to manage your ads or market your ads. It's so difficult to break even that it's really not a good idea to pay extra hoping that you will make profit after you've hired somebody else to do, which is mainly the main thing. Although also Amazon doesn't really like other people logging into your account and managing your ad, so it can create a little bit of conflict or chaos for your account. It's possible to do. I just don't think it's the best idea, but I've got videos about my ad strategy on Facebook and Amazon on YouTube already. But I'll make some more because there are some new things, even in the last couple of weeks, that Amazon is doing with AI generative tools built into the Amazon platform, which is going to affect advertising. There's also a pretty famous course called Ads for Authors, which I think is open right now. If I find it, I'll put a link below. We're going to move on to number 6, which I'm going to repeat, is about your book cover. I started as a developmental editor, but then I switched into book cover design. I did my fine art degree in Florence, Italy. I'm not really doing book cover design anymore, but I have talked about it at a lot of writing conferences over the years, and it's still it's still almost the biggest piece of your book marketing, and a lot of authors get it wrong. It's okay if you do it on a budget, like I mentioned, but I have tutorials and videos on YouTube and DIYbookcovers.com where I talk about how to make a good book cover. It is easier now and cheaper now than it has ever been before. I don't feel like I have a job as a book cover designer anymore because, like a lot of jobs, I think it's going to be replaced by new tools that replace Photoshop. There's been a shift in how book cover designers are made over the past 20 years, which is how long I've been doing this, and it has gotten easier and easier. Even for me as a book cover designer, I used to have to crop out a character manually, point by point, by outlining the figure, and now Photoshop, I can just click on the person and it cuts it out. There are tons of background removal tools that make it a lot easier. Tools that have been put into the programs I already use that have taken away 90% of the work. So I'm not surprised that there are new tools that take away the other 10%. It is frustrating for a lot of people, but it also means that authors can do more things by themselves now instead of needing to hire a professional for every piece of your publishing. People used to say, publishing costs $5,000, self-publishing costs $5,000 to do it well, but people also say you should never pay anybody to publish your book because then it's a vanity press. But that's really not exactly true, because while you can do everything yourself and upload your own files for free, you want a bare minimum professional looking enough book that readers can start reading and finish reading and enjoy your story. And if they are not starting to read or finishing to read your story, you most likely have a packaging problem, which luckily is a really easy fix, and you can even learn how to do it yourself as long as you take the time to learn how to do it and what tools are available. Number 7 is trying to please everyone and ending up pleasing no one, and this really applies to people who aren't sure what their genre is yet, and they refuse to decide because they say, my book has all of these topics, it's about all of these things, but it doesn't fit into any specific genre. It's not a popular book, it's not a commercial book, it's something new and different, and they think that's a feature. They think that that's a reason people will like it more because it combines other genres and it doesn't really fit in any specific box. That's not really how readers buy books or what they want. You have to prove that you can do justice to the specific genre they enjoy reading before you'll be able to get them on board with something more speculative or cross-genre. There's always a biggest genre, there's always a most appropriate genre. You can't just put a book out and hope people will find it. You need to do the work of telling them what your book is about, what other books it's similar to, what genres it belongs in, and you need to figure out how to put that together into a short blurb or sales copy, a very powerful hook at the top or the bottom. So it's not really about pleasing everybody, but it is a mistake I see a lot of authors make where they fail to accurately name their genres. They don't know who their audience is. They don't know if it's young adult or if it's adult. They're not really sure if it's for women or if it's for men or whatever. There may be a lot of flip-flopping in the beginning when you are trying to figure out. I know it can be difficult to name your own book because it feels limiting, but it is really important. You have to very concisely summarize the benefits of the book to a specific reader, and the first part of that is the genre. And that comes back to the book cover design, because your book cover design's job is to communicate the genre. And if you don't know the audience or the genre you're aiming for, you've probably got the cover wrong, which is why it's so important to, you can't say everybody who loves books is going to love this, or everyone who loves dogs or Halloween or whatever, although maybe that one. You have to really nail down your ideal reader persona, what other types of books that they read. A lot of authors will come to me with no idea because they haven't done any research. They wrote their book without considering the market or looking at the other bestsellers in their genre. They don't know who their audience is or what they like reading. It's better to do that first so that you make sure you write a book that satisfies those people. But most authors aren't going to do that. So you can still, when you finish a book, you need to make some decisions based on research about whether or not your book is going to satisfy, which audience is your book going to satisfy more. And you also need to be really careful because a lot of authors will say, this is a popular genre. I'm going to shoot for those people, but I'm going to break the rules of that genre. They think that popular literature is crap, that people are dumb because they like commercial fiction. So they think if they write something that pretends to be that genre, but is actually classy and clever and sophisticated, people will like it because they will see the advantage of higher quality writing. That is almost never true. So you need to not guess about who you think you're going to impress by being marginally close enough to a certain genre. You need to make sure you actually understand why people like those books. An easy way to do this, you should read the top 10 bestsellers in your categories that you're shooting for, but if you don't want to do that, at least read all the reviews so that you know why people liked it and why they didn't like it, so that even if you feel like it's too late to be editing your book at this stage, you may be able to go back and make it satisfy that audience more by removing a few of the things that they really hate and adding a few of the things that they really enjoy about the genre. Just make sure you're not targeting the wrong audience by, you can still sell a lot of books if you target the wrong audience and your book seems like a book in that category, but when readers find out that it is not that category, then they will be disappointed. So you also have to be really careful and clear in your blurb and in your ads also, to weed out the wrong type of people, especially in your ads. If you are targeting the wrong audience, you may get a lot of clicks and it'll cost a lot of money, but then when they come to your page and they figure out this book is not that thing that they like, it just looks like that thing that they like, that's not going to convert. And even if you got a lot of the sales and a lot of people bought the book, which is great, a big chunk of the audience that you were targeting may leave you negative reviews because they thought it was something that it wasn't, which is really your job in the blurb or the ads to get very clear on your positioning by telling readers what it is and what it isn't. Number 8 is misplaced expectations about favors. A lot of authors, when they're starting to build a platform, they want sort of some kind of a transactional system where, especially for book reviews, why don't we all team up together and review each other's books, stuff like that, which seems like a good idea at first. A long, long time ago, I actually made a site that allowed people to do that. The problem is, there's 2 problems. One, Amazon doesn't like biased reviews at all, which is also why you shouldn't ask for reviews from your friends or your family, not only because they're not the right audience to judge and they're not going to give you very valuable feedback, but also because it'll create a lot of frustration. Maybe they didn't like it, maybe they don't have time to read your book, or they don't want to read your book. That's a big favor to ask of people, especially if they don't enjoy your genre or they don't read a lot in general. But even if you do it with other authors in your genre, hoping to exchange reviews, that's going to become a big hassle if one person gives a nice review and the other person just doesn't like the book at all and can't really say any nice things about it. It can actually lead to very negative stuff. So that's why a lot of people are against it, and even why, in Book Marketing is Dead, I have a big section about reaching out to influencers and asking them to review your book, which I don't think is a good idea anymore because you're not really giving them anything of value. The free book itself is not value when you give it to someone as an ARC, an advanced reader copy. You're asking people to give a big chunk of their time to read your book or look through your book and also recommend it to their audience, which is another really big challenge. They've spent years developing and cultivating trust and rapport with their audience. They're not just going to randomly promote some book. Unless it's amazing, unless it's perfect, doesn't hurt maybe to reach out to influencers. It also just doesn't work very well. I've seen book campaigns who have huge reviews from the Dalai Lama, famous people, and those books aren't reliably selling either. Those, like I mentioned, great reviews, they're really impressive, they look great, but that's not why people buy books. If they don't like the idea of the book itself, if the book doesn't satisfy them itself, the reviews help nudge them towards a purchasing decision, but you really need real, authentic reviews. It's not really worth reaching out to influencers for reviews, but it's also not a good idea to trade reviews with other authors, even though a lot of new authors, it seems intuitively like it would be. It creates more stress and drama. It doesn't really work. You want real reviews by giving your book to actual people to see whether or not they enjoy it. They shouldn't really be incentivized at all. However, going back to something I said earlier, there's a difference between promoting something to a cold audience. If you get 100 downloads of total strangers, you might get 1 review. That's generally how it goes. 100 reads, 50 people didn't finish, you might get 1 real review from somebody. But if they are your followers and they know, like, and trust you, which is something you can do by building a relationship over time, which is why social media can be effective, but especially why email marketing is effective. It allows you to follow up and check in over months or years, provide value, build rapport. Then if you give them a free copy, they are more likely to read it and they're more likely to review it, which is why if you give out 100 ARC copies after you've built a list or a platform, you're more likely to get a dozen or so. Which is a pretty big thing because it's the difference between having 1 review and never being able to sell your book ever at all for years and years, or getting 12 reviews quickly and then you can start the marketing because you have those reviews. That's a crucial piece of book sales, and building a platform is the easiest way to do that. It's not absolutely necessary, but it really does help because you don't want to always rely on ads. You don't always want to be paying to access somebody else's platform. Eventually, you want all of your ads and all of your efforts to build cumulative effects by growing your own supporter base and fan base so that you can do less work and spend less money when you have a new book launch out. Number 9 and number 10 are really related, so I'm going to go through them both really quickly. Number 9 is overpaying for useless marketing packages. And the problem is like I mentioned, there are things that sound like they should be a good idea. There are things that sound impressive. Authors want those things. So when you're a vanity press and you're trying to sell services to authors, you obviously include those things, and then it'll sound really good and authors will be convinced, and they'll give you $5,000 or $10,000 to do all of these things, even though those things don't really take any time or effort and they don't actually sell books at all. I can't say, people always make the claim that all vanity presses are scams, all hybrid presses are scams, anybody who takes your money is a scam. And it's not necessarily true. I think you'll get better value by going directly. So hiring a cover designer or a book editor, because those are very separate things, rather than buying a package that includes both, which means they have a whole team and a lot of their money is probably going for advertisements or hand-holding to, customer service you, but less of the money is going toward the very important aspects of your publishing, like the book cover or the editing. I think you'll get better value for your money if you find, a good book cover designer for your genre and a great editor for your genre. That's tricky to do because there's a lot of stuff online and it can be difficult, especially with editing, to vet whether or not this person is actually going to do a good job or knows what they're talking about. So you may have to spend some money somewhere to get the best service to make your book look professional enough to convert the right audience. But the vanity presses will sell you on a package and then screw up the basics so that your book doesn't sell. And then they will also upsell you on the marketing stuff, which is where they make a lot of their real money. Or, instead of the basic package of marketing, you buy the vanity, 15K, 25K one, because they promise all of these awesome things, which if you're doing nonfiction and the book is a vehicle to get people into your coaching or your courses or your seminars or whatever, sometimes that stuff can work. It's all vanity metrics. It costs way too much money. I personally, as an editor, I wouldn't feel confident about the quality of the final draft that they're putting out, but I feel like that's true in a lot of cases. I don't really trust other people's judgment regarding quality, and I'm wrong some of the times. Like what I think is quality, books sell really, really, really well that I think were not very good. So I may be completely screwing up. What I think is good isn't what that particular audience needs or wants. So maybe those books are good because they satisfy the right market, possibly. But for these kind of things, when people are spending 25K or whatever on a book marketing package, typically that doesn't mean they're going to sell books. They're just using it to look good for their own business. And that might be a smart business expense for, a millionaire with a big business. But for an indie publisher, it's not a good idea to spend a lot of money trying to get all the services, expecting your book to be a bestseller, because even if they do all the things, when the money runs out, they're going to stop doing the things. And if they didn't do the right things that built your own platform, then after the sales stop, you're back to square one with zero, starting over, and now you don't have any money anymore. You're probably frustrated, which is number 10, burnout from doing things too much, too fast. This also, the reason people burn out because it seems like you have to do everything. You have to be on social media all the time. You have to be promoting your book all the time. Nothing seems to work. No promotion or advertising is converting profitably. So most authors eventually burn out. They'll burn out faster if they spend through their money. And then they have to figure out, okay, I spent all that money. Now I have to do it themselves. And then they try to learn. And there's just so much stuff to learn that people really authentically hate doing. So it feels overwhelming. They would rather just be writing. This is extremely common. It's why people spend money on book marketing services. And it's why my book is about why you shouldn't do that, because there are some things you need to learn. But the easiest thing to do is not to do all the things that don't work, even if it sounds good and even if someone is offering them to you. So to summarize, this is what it's really all about. Book marketing is dead, means that for most people, book marketing is not going to work, whether you pay somebody else to do it or you try to do it yourself, because your product is not converting the right audience. That's why most of my stuff focuses on helping authors publish books that will convert, which is book cover design, editing, getting reviews, building a platform. there's a lot of things you could do, but you don't have to be on social media promoting yourself all of the time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. There are also some hacks that you can use to get a lot of visibility or to build a platform really quickly. Guerrilla Publishing is another book that I have. I haven't revised it yet, so it's still more outdated, but it's also more recent than Book Marketing is Dead. And I have a course, the 21-day best-selling platform, 21-day best-selling author platform. I have a very old course called Reach Your Readers, and 21-day platform is kind of just, what are the quickest way to build your platform before you launch your book in 3 weeks so that you don't have to do any book marketing anymore. And I mentioned that into a book as well. I'll probably make some videos about that when it's ready in the near future. But the point is, you don't have to do everything. And if it feels like you're spinning your wheels and nothing is working, you probably have a packaging problem. You probably have to go back and figure out, why isn't this book converting the right audience? It is hard to get ads to work, but if your book converts the right audience well enough, then ads are sustainable, which means you can spend money on advertising and you'll make a little bit more money. And that's really the only thing you need to do to market your book successfully. But like I mentioned, it's helpful to use ads to also build your platform so that you're not only talking to strangers and paying to access someone else's platform, you're at the same time building up your own platform so you have more power and more control over time, so that every book launch gets easier and cheaper is the main point. So I'll leave a link down below. I do have some new ad promo boxes that are pretty cool. I put all this stuff in a blog post on Creative Indie. You can go read it, or you can get the book, Book Marketing is Dead, which is free on Amazon and also free on my website. Let me know Sorry about that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.